And welcome back to the channel. So today we're just going to do, again, similar to what we did yesterday. Today's a warm-up day. I'm not going to get too delved deep into the illustration process. I love doing characters, and for warm-ups I love doing character faces. This is something that I've always loved to do. And with that being said, the great thing about this is the fact that, you know, it does act as not only a warm-up process, but also it really kind of reconfirms those pathways in your brain that help you design characters and keep that mental capacity about anatomy and your creativity and all that other stuff. So whenever I first get up, typically what I'll do is I'll go in and have coffee with my wife and, you know, see the kids off, and then whenever I finally get into the studio, you know, after I've had, you know, a couple minutes to kind of collect my thoughts, a lot of times I sit down and I'm like, yeah, I'd like to draw something a little bit fun. And what I'm doing is, you see, utilizing simple shapes and getting, you know, my brain working to my hand, especially if I've got a big work day, which I do today, which will involve not only drawing, but also, you know, compositional items and some package design, and I kind of do just about everything whenever it comes to the art, in my art career. I've kind of positioned myself to really do just, I don't want to say everything. I'm not that bold and not that emblazoned, but, you know, I do quite a bit, from, you know, package design to character work to 3D work to plush to, I mean, you name it. In terms of product, it really kind of centers around that whole product design moniker and label, as far if you want to label what I do. I'm more or less a product designer that also has the ability to illustrate. So what am I doing? So you noticed I started out with a circle, just your basic shape. And then I always work in broad, you know, broad big strokes. So broad strokes and large shapes. Instead of going in and drawing individual strands of hair, I'll go in and draw large shapes of hair that help me define, you know, the forms early. And once I get those forms in early, then I can go in and really just start having fun with the details. You know, I think as artists, we really, and people in general, are very detail oriented. And a lot of times, to simplify shapes and to do things in a simple way, we want to get in and do things early. And a lot of times it works against us. We don't need to get in early. You know, we want to make sure that we establish good gesture and overall just have a better understanding of what we're doing in the drawing. What I'm doing right now is I'm blocking in the eyeballs. You said I put in, you know, your eye sockets, your 3/4 view, and now I always typically like to do that eye on the opposite side, because it establishes distance relationship where I need to put this other eye. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that lid in. Here, I'm just going to have that lid kind of down a little bit, because he's, draw this down a little bit. He's got some little bit of fat pocket on the bottom, and he's kind of squinting a little bit, so we're going to puff that out just a little bit. And now that I've established where that is, the inside, which is probably hidden by his nose, we're going to go ahead and draw a little bit over, and that'll be the other side of where that eye is. Then it goes up. Down. And I've got these wrinkles that come around right there. He's got a smile. This right here, the edge of his mouth, is pushing up on this muscle right here. And I've noticed I've got the ear in the wrong place. So I'm going to go ahead and push that ear out just a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm going to round this cheek off, then it's going to go down to his jaw right there. So now I'll come here. got this pocket underneath, this little fat pocket. And then we're going to come down. Here's the top part of his lip. And again, it's got this cheek, because a smile is coming up like this. Comes down like so. And have his teeth kind of exposed right there. And the other half right there. Here, draw that really dark, then it's going to come around. He's got that little bit of a lip that comes out right here, and then his chin right there. So if you notice, I'll draw through a lot of items, and I'll keep that center line to understand maybe he's got a little bit of a butt chin. So we're going to go ahead and draw that butt chin in just a little bit. Those overlapping lines. Let's go ahead and do this. And then this cheek comes up, and I can't really see where it's going to come. It's probably, the nose will hide it somewhat. So I'm going to go ahead and position this here. And here's the center line of his nose. So again, I can utilize that as a shadowing element. It's got a shadow right here. It's got that cast shadow underneath his lip. Okay, he's got these wrinkles that come out, kind of radiate a little bit out. Okay, do this. Here, there. Okay. Now what I'm doing is I'm going back to the details and reaffirming and reconfirming where I want certain elements to be. It's going to be here. I'll shade that in slightly. A little bit of value. Go ahead and have that right here. So everybody draws a little bit different. I'm of that camp. Here, I'm going to do this. I'm of that camp to kind of lock your wrist whenever you draw. There is no particular way that is perfect and just and right. Whenever it comes to drawing, I've seen so many different ways. I mean, I've seen people draw like this. I've seen people draw like this. I've seen people draw, you know, like this. It just depends on what you're most comfortable with and, you know, what is going to be the best option for you. And whenever I draw, I like kind of locking my wrist and I use my entire arm to draw because it helps me with stroke and it helps me not getting into, you know, noodling and doing this whole business. I remember back whenever I was really kind of training myself and teaching myself how to see and how to draw, and it just made more sense for me because I like to draw really big and I needed a big area, and instead of just doing this the whole time, it's better for me to use the entire stroke to feel that form first. That's probably why I have such a big, I have a large digital tablet whenever I work digitally. I have a 24-inch tablet, and I couldn't imagine, I mean, I used to work on a 22, and before that I worked on a 21, and I couldn't imagine, you know, having to noodle and be really small. Even whenever I draw on small tablets like an iPad or some of the smaller tablets, it is a challenge for me because I have to limit my stroke quite a bit. So let's go ahead and we'll have come around. There we go. Now what I'm doing is just putting a little bit of value to push and pull some of those forms forward and backward. If that makes any sense. I'm going to cast shadow this a little bit. We're going to go ahead and shadow these a little bit as well. We've got that large hair shape. So in this stage, you're still thinking, or at least I am. I'm still thinking form, I'm still thinking gesture, I'm still thinking how the light falls over these forms. You know, if the light's upper right hand side, so I'm going to have a nice shadow right here. And another thing to consider would be shadow shapes. So what I do typically, if I'm using reference or if I'm looking at, you know, drawing from life, I'll squint my eyes. And what that does is it'll blur everything. It'll blur everything down to just lights and darks. And you can really see those shadow shapes definitively, very easily, whenever you squint your eyes. And that's not really a trick. It's just a practical thing that I use whenever I draw. Okay. A little bit of shadow form right there, shadow shape. Good. And under here, his eyes, a little sinister. Okay. Let's give her a little bit of glasses here. Again, notice how I'm not going in and doing this. I'm literally thinking larger. I'm drawing small, but I'm thinking large. I'm thinking much larger because I'm thinking I'm drawing the glasses. I'm drawing kind of a skewed 3/4 perspective. And this helps me. Make this a little bit bigger. I don't see that pupil. There we go. That makes a lot of sense. Alright, we'll go to the next one. The final one. Okay. So, you know, just broad strokes, broad shapes. You know, doing things very rough, very simplistic to begin with helps me whenever it comes to prioritizing things. So I wanted to be kind of a thicker creature, thicker person. So thicker, larger, not necessarily fat, but muscular. So character design, you know, depending on how you want to design the character, I'm always asking those questions. You know, I've talked about this before, about how, you know, if that particular character is really intelligent, maybe I'll give them glasses and a large forehead. And maybe they're a little seedy and sinister, maybe I'll give them a small chin. Whereas a larger creature, or a larger individual, or a larger person will that needs to be a little bit stronger, will have a smaller head, again, less brain power, larger chin, larger neck, so it'd be the muscle of the situation. So whenever you look at that, it's an easy read by you as a person, a human being. You know, and your brain kind of profiles. It's a very interesting dynamic of how your brain will automatically profile something very quickly. You know, I read all the time about, you know, how the government and how the military sees certain objects and sees certain things, and they put them into a database, and they do, you know, image searches, and they can, you know, crawl the web based upon the silhouettes and based upon certain attributes that a person will display. And it's a very interesting thing of how human beings, you know, and animals in general, will view a shape, whether it's soft, whether it's rough, whether it's hard. You know, I went back to that whole understanding whenever you're a kid and you view traffic signs, and, you know, traffic signs are displayed in such a way, you know, your octagonal, your pyramid, you know, all of those shapes read from a distance. So that's what happens whenever you look at characters and design characters like this. You want them to be an easy read. You don't want the viewer to be confused of what they are. A really good example of this would be Kronk. If any of you know who Kronk is, you know, Kronk is that lovable big oaf from Emperor's New Groove. you know, and you know, Yzma is real skinny, but she's got a larger head in proportionate to her body, and a very seedy chin, and she's got points to her, so she's evil. Whereas Kronk is big, and he's very muscular. He's got little legs and a little waist, but a huge broad chest and a little brain, right, and a huge chin. So those things are like I said, easy reads that you as a character designer, you as a budding illustrator artist can really draw upon whenever you design characters. So you see I've already mapped out kind of what I'm doing. Now what I'm doing is I'm just going in and again blocking in those shapes. We're going to make his ears a little bit smaller. So even in this stage, I am still thinking anatomy. You see I've put in the brow line. I put in that eye line. I've got the chin, very large chin. So some items shrink, some items get larger, pertaining again to that character design that I'm thinking of. So make his head small. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put in his nose. Nose kind of crooked because he's probably been in a lot of fights. Those flaring nostrils, again, easy read. Flaring nostrils indicate some type of, you know, there's anger there, there's hostility. You know, the upturned nose here, some type of education, big, you know, those little elements really all kind of mesh together to create the character design of what you're trying to accomplish. And there's his eyes here. I'm going to have the brow come around, and then I'm going to have a little bit of a bushy brow right there. Here. And there's a muscle, there's a big muscle underneath. So this muscle right here goes up and down, and again, thinking, I'll go around, and I have that entire muscle right there. And then I'm going to shade in this brow, and this muscle comes here, and this muscle comes here, and I've got these furrowed brow creases right there. So let's go ahead. Now we talked about yesterday about how, you know, big eyes, you know, we've seen this in different cute things. Cute, you know, would be big eyes, big pupils, and then you have maybe a shocking moment, and then the pupil gets down really small a lot of times, you know, to focus on a singular item. So we're going to make those pupils really small. Right there. Okay. And again, see, he's got kind of a bunched up. Here's that cheek muscle right here. And he's going to be kind of having a frown. I've already denoted that right down here. So he's going to have that frown, and this comes out like here. Again, comes around here. Here's the other side of that cheek, where the mouth goes around like this. Okay. We're going to have his teeth kind of coming over his bottom lip. Maybe that's a crooked tooth right there. You know, these little things that I'm doing, let's go ahead and have that come all the way down, that muscle group. Now that I've kind of established a decent character design, let's go ahead and start putting in some of those he's got that a little bit of a chin right there. Comes down, comes around, and then it goes out. There's that other ear. Let's go ahead and make that visible. Do the same thing over here. Not too big. I don't want to make them too big. Shade those in. Okay. Okay, and he is bald, but we are going to give him some little hair follicles up there. Let's go ahead and shade that in with a little bit of value. And now what I'm doing is I'm just pushing and pulling some of those lines, giving it what's called variation of line weight. Variation of line weight, I've talked about this before. You know, whenever two lines meet, especially whenever you have, I equate it to this, whenever you look at your finger, so you can see the lines here, but whenever I fold it, you see how much darker these lines and thicker these lines become. So it's thinner at the top because there's less material there, but whenever you have more material on the surface area and they come together, it creates a nice thick line. So that's what I'm doing here. So the line, whenever I have those two forms meet, it's going to be nice and thick, and that crease right there, and these overlapping lines right here. And then I'm going to have a little bit of 5 o'clock shadow. Coming in here. Again, I'm going to do a variation of line weight right here. That nose is kind of punched out because he's been knocked in the face a couple thousand times. That's good. And there's that tooth. I'm going to have that tooth come out just a little bit and have his lip kind of wrap around. And again, two things coming together. I'm going to have that variation. And right down here we have the thicker fat folds right here. I'm going to go ahead and put that in a little bit of shading. What's great about, I'm using a Koh-i-Noor woodless pencil, color pencil. It says Czech, so I suppose it's probably made in the Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia, one of those two. I don't quite know which one. But what makes these nice, number one, is they don't really smear that much. They don't erase, but since they're woodless, you can turn it on its side and really get in there and put a lot of value very quickly. And it's a great sketch alternative to like your col erase, which I use col erase pencils as well. And you can erase those very easily. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this again. More contrast will draw your eye, so I want your eyes to go up towards his eyes, because that's where the problem's gonna happen, mister. So I'll give him a little right there. I'm not really happy with these teeth. I want them to be a little bit less rounded. And even though he's not a monster per se, he means business. And this big fat fold right here, I'm going to go ahead and shade under this because, you know, got to have a little bit of baggage on the bottom. Let's go ahead and draw that in, top. And this will be shaded in. Okay. Got a hairy back. Having a hairy back doesn't necessarily mean that you're a villain. I do not have a hairy back. Thank you very much. My dad did. Good grief, he was a monkey. My dad was he was so hairy. Okay. So now what I'm doing now is, again, just reestablishing some of those little areas that I think really need a little bit of attention, like the inside of his eye. You know, here's the iris to again give it that human element. This one's a little more exposed. We'll go ahead and shade that in at the top just slightly. Just a little bit. Yeah. So stylized characters like this are really fun, but they always have their base in reality, or some type of reality. You know, I'm not going to have an eyeball on a cheek because he's not a monster. If I'm doing a human being, it needs to have some type of semblance of a human being. Okay, let's go ahead and try the nose. Good. A little bit of cast shadow right here, because again the light's coming from the upper left. A little bit of a cast shadow. A little bit of cast shadow there. Good. And then I'm going to have a cast shadow from the upper lip. You know, and I could sit here and shade, and it just goes like that. Right. And yeah, a little simple warm-up for the day. Having a little bit of fun, a little bit of expression. Darken these eyebrows up quite a bit because I want them to be kind of that framing element for the eyeballs. Yeah. And then of course we can go in and got that nice shadow that casts over the eye right here. And you got that form that kind of casts right here. Going in. A little bit of a shadow right here. And that's pretty much where I wanted to land for you guys today. A little bit of a warm-up, a little bit of fun, a little bit of happiness. With some villains and some sinestros. Sinister people. You know? So please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe. If you like what you see, definitely share the video. Hit that notification bell and you'll definitely see all the videos trying to grow the channel 2022. I'm looking to really grow the channel exponentially and offer some more features. You know, like I said, tutorials and some other things after I can get a little bit further ahead. Here we are in February. Good gracious me. It's already happening. February. Wow. Yeah. I can draw for hours. Just sit here and draw, go back and forth, and having some fun. But that's it for today, guys. We'll see you next time.